Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands. I'm your host, Joe Jackson. Alongside me, as always, is my co-host, Kraig Bowers. We are here to preview Purdue versus Alabama. Purdue gets their first big-time matchup of the regular season. They play Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern time on ESPN2. It is a true road game for Purdue. Shout out Painter and Nate Oates. And I would say it's seen a slight uptick across college basketball, but shout out Painter and Nate Oates for scheduling this true road and road series. As you may remember, Alabama did come to Purdue last season. Purdue was able to pick up a very early season win in a game where CJ Cox kind of went crazy for a little bit. TKR had 26 points. Braden had 17 and 10. Purdue was able to win at Mackey, but now they go on the road to Alabama. Kraig, throw it to you. Just kind of how are you doing? How are you feeling about this game? And yeah, just kind of all that.
I'm doing well. I don't know how I feel about this game right now. Coming off of the last two performances, some of the defensive concerns that we have, obviously, going into this game, I think Alabama is going to present a really interesting matchup for Purdue in terms of what they're going to have to do and excel at defensively to win this game. With that said, we still haven't seen Purdue at full strength. So I think that is important to remember just in terms of this team has been prepping all year, like TKR is out there at the 4. And whether you think he's a high quality defender or not, it still just changes things, right? When you don't have that starting lineup out there and that's what you're used to. So I think it's going to be really interesting. You know, Coach Nate Oates from Alabama coming into his 7th year, 147 and 63 over that span, has taken that team to a Final Four. They come into this game at 2-0, having already played one big time matchup, winning at St. John's. Who typically year in, year out is supposed to be a really high level defensive team. Although there were lots of reports kind of coming out of St. John's that Pitino wasn't happy about the way that team was playing defense going into that game. If we go over and look at where kind of Alabama sits relative to Purdue right now, Purdue's number 2 in the AP poll. And when we look at Alabama currently comes in at 8th in the AP, 17th in KenPom. This is a team that doesn't bring a ton back from last year in terms of percentage of minutes and percentage of scoring. I do think that's deceiving, though, because 2 big-time contributors got injured early in the season last year and missed a large portion of it. But they're guys that have been around. So I think in reality, they have a little bit more coming back that's familiar with the program than what those stats might tell you. I think this game, you know, as we start to look at it, and we can jump into some of the other KenPom stuff, but Joe, some of the things that jump out right away when you look at these two teams, Alabama comes in ranked 14th in the country in offensive efficiency. Purdue comes in ranked 1st in offensive efficiency. On the flip side of that, 2 completely different metrics. Purdue comes in ranked, man, I totally butchered which tempo that was. 333rd, right? Tempo? I put 33rd in notes, but I think it's 333rd. I was about right wrong. So Purdue comes in ranked 333rd in tempo. Alabama comes into this game ranked 2nd in tempo. So right away, I think a contrast to styles. And let's just kind of dive in a little bit here right away. We're not going to go through the players like maybe we have in the past. Specifically, we're going to kind of bring them up as we talk about some of the areas of potential concern or areas where Alabama can really excel in what they do. So let's just jump right into that tempo conversation and that contrast of style. Just watching Alabama, it really seems like what they want to do is take the first good shot they get, not necessarily hunt for that absolute best shot, but if they get a good window, go ahead and take that shot. Oates wants threes and shots at the rim. Only I think like 2% were mid-range and 12.9 paint non-rim touches or shots that they've put up so far this entire season. Just talk to us a little bit about this Alabama offense and what issues you might see from that tempo coming, or can Purdue counter that by slowing Alabama down with their style of play?
Yeah, I mean, you look at, I know it's an exhibition, but like you look at what Purdue did against Kentucky's transition offense, and it was really poor. I think that transition defense, even in the 2 regular season games, hasn't been awesome, and Bama is going to push them more than anything. Now, like you said, some of their offensive tempo stats gets, I guess I don't know if skewed's the right word, but pushed up just because they do take that first good look. They do get in transition a good amount, but they're in the 65th percentile of transition rate. So like above average, definitely, and are going to push, but it's not like they're like, 99th percentile transition usage. It is a lot of, hey, once we get any sort of good look in the half court, that's when we're going to be able to operate and just get our first look up. Also, with Nate Oates' kind of very analytical system, what is considered a good look kind of is different compared to some teams. Like some guys that maybe aren't awesome 3-point shooters, if they get any sort of open look, like that's still a good look. And so those are the types of ones, as a on Purdue's side, you probably want them to be taking those types of looks. Thing number one though is just getting back in transition. Right there, we'll talk about the guards, I'm sure, in a second, but you can't let Bama get 15 to 20 just easy points in transition. They're going to get a few. It's just going to happen, but you have to be able to limit that some.
Yeah. And moving into those guards a little bit here, I don't know if you remember when we did this preview show last year for Alabama, but I said in that preview show, I distinctly remember going into that game saying one of the people that scared me the most was actually coming off the bench and LeBaron Philon. And in terms of what he could potentially do getting into the paint against Purdue, who was struggling last year at the same time, preventing people from getting into the paint. And it's something that he excels at very, very well. Killed us last year, to be honest, 18 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 1 turnover. In what was a little bit of a coming out game for him, even though Alabama ends up losing that. He comes into this game, obviously only having played 2 so far, averaging 23.5 points, 5.5 assists, 3 rebounds on only 2.5 turnovers a game. Only shot 32% from 3 last year. We're going to get into some of the 3-point shooting later, but comes in. What I'm concerned about is getting to the rim, paint touches. He's shooting 84.6% at the rim on 43.3% of his shots coming at the rim. So that's a really high volume in terms of how many are coming at the rim. And then the other guard who also can get downhill is Aiden Holloway, 6'1", 178-pound junior, coming in averaging. He only played one game because he didn't play the first one, but at 21 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists. He did shoot 41% from 3 the last year as well. Again, we'll get into 3-point shooting in a minute. What I'm more worried about is the fact, again, he can get in there. 22.2% of his attempts come at the rim, and another 27.8 of his shots are non-rim paint shots. So both of those guys are shifty with the ball. They have a second move. They have a counter as they start to drive to the rim and can really attack there. If I'm looking as a Purdue fan, this jumps out at me as something that I'm worried about. Am I right to be concerned?
Yeah, I mean, Purdue's defense, especially on the perimeter, has been really, really bad. And these two Bama guards are guys that have potential to carve them up, just straight up. Like, they're athletic. I think Holloway's really shifty. They're not, the biggest guards in the world. Philon's, I think, 6'4", and Holloway's 6'1".
Oh.
But their ability to get downhill, to get to the rim is a real thing. And Philon is he is a flamethrower. Like, he is somebody that can just get going very, very quickly, using the physicality, using spacing, and I don't know if we'll talk about it as much maybe later or not, but Bama is right now, and it's only 2 games, so numbers are skewed a little bit and things will normalize. But right now, they are running the most pick and roll in the entire country. Just straight up, almost 50% of their possessions are ending with some sort of pick and roll. That's a lot of Philon. That's a lot of Holloway. Right, Purdue is going to have to figure out what they want to do, and it probably starts with the guards. Like, I don't think it's fair to expect the guards to stay in front and lock these guys up, but they do have to make it a little bit harder and make it a little bit more difficult for Philon, for Holloway to be able to turn that corner to get downhill. We'll talk about defensive coverage in a second, but that feels like after stopping transition defense, or transition offense, it's immediately trying to keep the ball in front as best as possible.
Yeah, and is there anything schematically, like, do you think in this game that Purdue goes back to playing more drop just to try to protect against that final line of attack because they want to get to the rim so much and try to force them into a little bit more of mid-range area where, Oates really doesn't want them taking too many shots there? Or we gonna see, we've been trying to do a lot of stuff with Clough hedging. Do you expect to see more of that? Do they want to try to get more pressure up top?
If I were based on just kind of Painter's comments preseason and a little bit that we've talked to him about Clough and the hedge and that, I would expect a lot more hedge from him. And I think the reasoning behind that would be basically cutting off the guards and not letting them turn the corner. Like that, if Clough is doing his job, then the guards should be pushed back a bit, and then the guards, I mean, Phylon and Holloway, they should be able to be pushed back a bit, and you just kind of live with the rotation defense from there. Especially because we'll talk about it with keys in the game and that Bama has good bigs, they don't have elite bigs, and so I think I would, if I were to guess, I would bet Purdue is pretty aggressive with their ball screen coverage. Even Jacobson, he won't be in a hedge, but I could see him being closer to the level of the screen, just really trying to not allow these guards to get downhill.
Gotcha. And we mentioned 3-point shooting a few times, and the fact that Alabama really wants to get the first good look up. Okay, whether it's the best look they could possibly get or not. I was a little surprised that in terms of distribution of points and attempts, that their 3-point shooting wasn't higher, because it feels like in previous years it was. It sure seems like they're getting downhill and getting to the rim at a higher percentage maybe than the last 2 years, but I didn't go back and check the numbers. We know Holloway is a really high level 3-point shooter. I believe he's over 40% the last year. And then as we look at Latrell as well, Latrell Wrightsell, 6'3", 189-pound senior. He got hurt last year with an Achilles and went out. He really hurt us from the 3-point line last year in that game. I think he only had 11 points, but it felt like every time it felt like Purdue started to pull away, it felt like Wrightsell hit a big three until Purdue eventually did pull that one out. But over 40% career 3-point shooter. And then you've got another guy in terms of a 6'5", 185-pound senior guard in Houston Mallett, who comes in averaging 11.5 points, 6.5 rebounds. He shot 42.5% from three the last full season that he played, but he sat out most of last year with a knee injury. Really, the one who's not, from a percentage standpoint, a really proficient 3-point shooter is Phylon. And then everybody else on the perimeter over their career appears to do it at a really high level, and we've seen it with our own eyes when Purdue played Alabama. Are they, I guess, one, if they're going to be able to get into the paint, you're trying to keep them out of the paint. What can Purdue do here to try to counter this attack of, like, as soon as we get a good look, we're going to shoot a three and we're just going to let them fly? Do you live with some of that and sell out to try to keep them out of the paint and wait until you see them actually knocking those down here? I'm struggling to see how we're going to counter both the interior attack and the perimeter attack.
I would, my thought is you just limit the interior first. And if Alabama's having one of those games where everything's falling from three, then you adjust and you figure it out from there. 2 games, but they're only shooting 30.6% from three as a team. Obviously, again, 2 games, like, things can go up and down. Yeah. And they've been historically a good 3-point shooting team. But I think, especially with, like, the bigs are guys that are going to be willing to shoot at times. They're not always going to be, like, elite shooters. I think you can just kind of sell out in the interior. You live with some of their guys, probably not named Wrightsell and not named Holloway, really get up threes. Phylon's he's gonna get up shots. You kind of just live with whatever he's gonna do. Again, I think you try to take away the paint as much as possible. I also think there's the ways Purdue's defense is where they get beat off the dribble and then have to just kind of be in rotation and are behind a lot. Bama taking the first good look could almost, I don't want to say help Purdue, but you compare it to, like, in Oakland, who, right, they could just kind of keep working and they could eventually turn the good shot into a great shot. Bama's not going to do that as much. And so if you can just limit that initial attack and even just give up a solid look, that's better than maybe what they've been doing.
Is Bama running a bunch of action to try to get guys open from three, or is it more them getting into the paint and kicking it out, swinging it around, or a guy making his own move to get a shot?
Yeah, it's more just driving kick. Like I said, lots of pick and roll right now. and so it is just put the ball in in their two guys' hand, file on, and Holloway, I guess Reitzel is also probably in that to some degree, and just kind of work from there. They do a very good job with their spacing. They're going to always pretty much have two guys in the corner and either one guy in the weak side wing who lifts or one of the bigs in the dunker spot. They're almost always going to have the whoever's in the weak side corner, while on offense, they're almost always going to lift, just trying to make it a little bit more difficult for that low man. So that's something to watch is what is that weak side defender doing? Is he selling out to take away the rim, or is he going to stay at home a little bit more with shooters? It is maybe more so than most teams right now. Like this is really is just how well can you stay in front of your man and how well can the bigs help when the guards get behind.
Yeah, 100% agree. One of the other stats that jumped out to me a little bit, just in terms of what this team does, and it kind of surprised me a little bit because when I watched the St. John's game the other day, I didn't think like they didn't do a great job of offensive rebounding themselves. Alabama didn't, in my mind, anyway. It seemed like their two bigs have a tendency to get bullied and pushed around a little bit down low, but their defensive rebounding numbers are great, and they really limit second chances from other teams. Only 21% offensive rebounding rate for the teams that they have played so far. But it doesn't really seem to come from the two guys you think it would come from in Bol Bowen and in Sherrill. It seems to be a group effort, but a lot of that coming from Mallet at that third guard spot and Allen at the forward spot. He comes in as a 6'7", 205-pound freshman that was ranked 65th in his class with 9 points. But the big thing to me is he's averaging 8.5 rebounds a game. Obviously, only a 2-game sample size, so don't want to go overboard here. I guess as you watch those 2 games, did you notice anything about their rebounding? Are they selling out to make sure, like other teams don't get that second chance? Like, because they're not a great offensive rebounding team.
Yeah, I mean, I think nothing crazy stood out, I guess, to me as I watched, and that's a good call out by you, kind of pointing out the percentages and that. Just kind of flipping through NATO's history right now, like they've honestly never been an awesome defensive rebounding team. It's never been a big part of their nature. Just right, if you're going to be an elite defensive rebounding team, you probably have to give up some of your transition looks, and maybe they are starting to do that because their transition rate has dropped just a little bit compared to some previous seasons. So maybe there is going to be a little bit more of, hey, we don't have as big of bigs. Let's just like really make sure we rebound well. But it will be something to monitor, especially like you said, at Houston Millette at the 3 spot. Purdue's kind of been getting hurt a lot from those wings and forwards with the rebounding. So it'll be a big ask for the Lawyer, Jakari, those types of guys, CJ to really be able to battle.
Yeah, and I do think coming into this game, even with that said, just calling that out quickly, I still think Purdue has the advantage down low with their bigs. And to me, we'll get to keys of the game later, but that's going to be one of the things that I talk about, at least in that area. It feels like Purdue should have a physical advantage and be able to out rebound this team and should be able to take advantage down low. So let's turn to their bigs a little bit. Taylor Bol Bowen, it starts at the 4 as a 6'10", 195-pound junior. You just heard the numbers there. He's a real tall, lanky guy. Not necessarily a real beefy guy down low. 12.5 points, 6 rebounds coming into this game. I think I'll be interested to hear your thoughts, but about how we'll guard them and how you think they'll guard us. But specifically in that, Braden Smith, TKR short roll game, whether his length, because he has a really big wingspan too, might limit TKR a little bit. And if they go to a little bit more true post up where TK can really get his body into him and be physical with him down low. And then at center, Aiden Sherrill, 6'10", 240-pound sophomore, 9 points, 3 rebounds a game. Not a big rebounder for his size and for his position. Both guys will step out a little and shoot from outside, but I think they're both in the low 30%. So I don't know it's somebody you really want to worry about guarding, especially if we want to make sure Clough doesn't get pulled away from the rim too much from a rebounding standpoint. I guess your thoughts on their 2 bigs and should Purdue be able to take advantage of them on the offensive end? And then on the flip side of that, I'm kind of curious because of the fact you mentioned it already, how much pick and roll Alabama's running. And it felt like they primarily were doing that with Bol Bowen. again in that St. John's game and having success. If you think TK will guard Bull Bowen, or if you think they'll flip that matchup.
That's a. Now that you say that, I wouldn't be shocked if they flip it and just try to whoever is the one setting the screen more have them guarded by Clough at least for sure. When it's TKR and Jacobson, maybe well even then they probably still just probably want Jacobson in it. But yeah, no, this is a spot where I think like if Purdue wins this game, it's because Purdue's front court was much, much better. And it's not really like a shot at Bull Bowen or Cheryl. It's more of just like I think Purdue's front court is should just be better, right? TKR, assuming he's back. I don't know if there's been any word on that, but I assume he's going to be back. Oscar Clough, like this is we've seen him get more comfortable game by game. Maybe this could be a breakout game where I mean he had success against Bama last season, and who had Cliff Amori at that time, and Amori's probably more uh, physical and athletic than Cheryl or Bull Bowen. So maybe it could be a coming out game really for him. This it just really feels like an area that they're going to have to figure it out now. Talk with like the short roll on that you started with. Bama plays a very deep drop. It's what they always do. They want to force mid-range shots, and I think it's just going to be something to monitor. Like it makes sense to me if they stay in their deep drop, they stay in their principles and live with brain pull-ups and TKR 12-foot floaters. But at the same time, we know how good they are at those two things. Maybe they do shade their big up higher. And like you said, use Bull Bowen's length to try to disrupt a little bit more. So it'll be an interesting battle. Wouldn't be shocked if Bama comes out in one coverage and switches to or one style to defend to that and switches how they defend it throughout the game.
And that's kind of the next thing I was going to ask in terms of like what Alabama typically does during the defensive scheme and how Purdue might attack it. So you already kind of addressed it there in terms of what style they want to play. Is there anything else that jumps up out about Alabama's defense or about their personnel in terms of specific areas where this Purdue team could have the advantage and really exploit it?
Yeah, I think this feels very much like a Smith TKR game, like a lot of pick and rolls where I still think I think Brain's probably still at his best against drop coverage, which is what Bama primarily runs. Um, and right, Bama is a team that doesn't want to help off the perimeter if they don't have to. They want to limit threes. It's been one of their kind of defensive identities over the last few years with Nate Oates. And so with that, that means makes it a little bit harder for drive and kick out to three, but it makes it a little bit easier for Braden and TKR, Braden and Clough and Jacobson to be able to operate and pick and roll. I think getting Lawyer going with, I've highlighted it on a couple post game shows, getting him going using like off ball action while the pick and roll is still happening will be big. That's one way to maybe try to just mess with the weak side defense a little bit, but primarily drop coverage, don't send a lot of help, want to force mid-range shots, and they're also generally going to let the bigs operate. They don't usually double the post, but I think I'm going to say that for basically you can just put this blanket statement for every team that I say doesn't double the post. They don't double the post, but also they haven't played TKR. Like he's that good in the post. You could maybe he's potentially worth switching up your defensive coverage for.
Yeah, and I always think it's interesting. One of the things that Painter says is like, when you face a team and in terms of things that might be able to give Purdue trouble at different times, one of the things that they'll say is like, well, yeah, they did that and they don't normally do that, but then it's really hard to be good at it. Like if you're not used to doubling the post, there's a lot of other things that are happening, right? If you're going to be sound defensively when you double the post after you double, right? So it'll be interesting if they do, and then how good of a job they do of it if they decide to go ahead and double. We've hit on, I think, the major contributors. There are four other guys who've gotten some minutes off the bench. Is there anybody else you want to highlight as a potential contributor for Alabama?
Noah Williamson is the one that I kind of want to call out, a 7-foot senior, transferred from Bucknell. I don't expect him to be a major contributor, especially offensively, but good rebounder, good rim protector, just kind of a really big body that they can like. That's the one really big body Bama has, and if Clough, Jacobson, TKR are really starting to go off, wouldn't be shocked to see him get some more run. Yeah, I mean, we hit on Amari Allen. He's the other big guy off the bench. Like I want to probably reiterate, he very versatile as a forward, where he can be a point forward, can play the 2 through 4, can be a problem for Purdue potentially. But yeah, no, out of the four kind of that played more reserve minutes, no Williamson's really the only one that maybe stood out. Maybe Davion Hannah, but I don't know if you have anything on the other three.
Not particularly. I thought, well, I good shout on Allen too, because I just thought he provided a lot of activity and energy when he comes into the game. Also, and more than anything, as a group, like I was shocked how many freshmen were on this team
Yeah,
for a guy who is built. He's not a wholesale change guy, I don't think, every year like some of the other coaches on transfer additions, but has definitely utilized the transfer portal a lot. And to see this many freshmen and guys who are ranked in the top 100 coming in and already getting some minutes, I thought was just a little bit of an interesting change for an Oats team. Maybe I'm wrong on that and just haven't paid close enough attention over the last 4 or 5 years. Before we get into the keys to the game, Joe, I want to ask you just in generalities. We've been through 2 games now, obviously without TKR. If I just said in general for this Purdue team, what are a couple things that you want to see moving forward? What things just jump out at you?
yeah. I would say one big thing is just like being more comfortable defensively. And I know I don't mean per se like locking up, but more of just like, okay, we know that this is a switch. We know that this is a hedge now. Like there's more just playing and less thinking. Because I still think Purdue is very much caught in the thinking category on the defensive side of the ball. I think that can apply to some of the on-ball pressure that Purdue is given to. Like, CJ and Jakari, especially Jakari, had really bad defensive games last game. Can they just kind of bounce back and be like, no, like we're going to be those guys for this team. That's what we need to do. And then, yeah, I would say that's the big one. Truthfully, I'm so we have like a kind of note show scripts. My other two are the ones that you have written down, so I won't take them from you.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, and my other 2 things, one, I just want to see the big men assert their physicality. Like Clough, you are a big dude. You are a monster of a body, right? Just
Yep.
go out there and assert that physicality, meet them with the first punch, and then secure rebounds. It feels sometimes like we're a little bit of, like baby birds in a nest, like sticking our heads up, waiting for the food to come down. And when it's just like, go get the ball. It's right there. Go get it. Be a little bit quicker about how you do that. So I want to see that. The other big thing is Braden has been his facilitator bag. Last year, we saw him really step up as a scorer. And, there's been times, whether it was the exhibition or that game against Oakland, where it's like, go be the killer that you are. Like, don't wait on it. Great, try to get everybody else involved early on. But if you see your teammates struggling, go be that killer. Do it a little bit faster. Like we did it in the Oakland game. His scoring was up, but it just feels like that step to maybe. He just wants to get everybody else involved so badly. It feels like he's just really slowly waiting to get to that in certain games.
And I think this will be the game that he starts really just being like, yeah, we're like winning this game. And I think you saw it a little bit in the second half of Oakland when it was
Right.
close, where it's just like, all right, like I'm done kind of playing around. Yeah, we want to see that. I get what he was, especially the 2 games in the exhibitions, like.
Yeah.
Just trying to not even just get everybody involved, but he, as a passer, understand, okay, these are the passes that I can make to these guys. These are who I trust to catch the ball and those different things. But I would expect Braden to really get going. Also, like his best pick and roll mate has been out the first 2 games.
Yep.
So getting him back should also help.
Yeah. And not calling out the, I guess, desire to get everybody else involved, especially in the 4 games that we've had so far. But as we step up play, like, let's see that killer, Braden,
Yeah.
All right. Keys to the game is what we always kind of wrap up with here. Feel free to steal anything that's on my list too. If it's already bouncing around your mind, go ahead and give me your first key to the game, and then I'll share one of mine.
I'm gonna go with transition defense. I think it is just like we talked about at the top. Maybe Bama's slowing down just a little bit. It's only 2 games. We'll see. Purdue has struggled with their transition defense. It has not been a bright spot defensively through the 2 games and 2 exhibitions. You can't let Bama get 20 free points out of transition. It's just something like that. That cannot happen, especially on the road.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think the first one for me, and we've already talked about it multiple times, but it's just going to be that point of attack perimeter defense, whether it's Braden, CJ, Jakari, Fletch, it don't matter, right? Because you got 2 guys out there pretty much, well, I shouldn't say all the time, but at least in the starting lineup, you got 2 guys that are extremely shifty and can get into the paint. And then once Purdue's in help, right? And we've heard Painter talk about this all the time. Then everybody's in trouble. So I think that is a big key for me. The other thing I'm going to say too is just, it took Purdue 187-78 last year. No matter what you do against this Alabama team, just because of how quickly they shoot, even in a half-court offense, whether it's transition or not, the game is going to be higher scoring because there's going to be a lot of possessions. But I still think to win this game, Purdue on the offensive end needs to slow this thing down a little bit, because I think it just teams that want to play quick and want to shoot quick and just move the game and from a tempo standpoint faster, I think it really frustrates them when you slow the game down a little bit.
Yeah, and I mean, Purdue is very good at that with Braden, with TKR. Just looked it up. There were 68 possessions in last year's game between the two. That was the second fewest Bama had all season. The only one that was less was the game before when they played McNeese, Purdue played McNeese, very physical, very slow, grindy. So I think that's a very good point. And Braden, I know everybody like wants to see Purdue get in transition more, and there will be spots for it for sure.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of Braden walk the ball up 22 seconds, cross half court, and get into your set from there. I'll go my other 2 keys, and I'll start with Smith and TKR. Just have to convert on their looks. They have to be aggressive. Like, assuming TKR is playing, this is a game to me that those 2 can combine for 50 points. I'm not saying they have to do that much, but like that's the type of game that feels reasonable for them to be able to win. Last year, I mean, we know CJ went off and Fletch also had 17 points, but TKR had 26, Braden had 17 and 10 assists. Like, it just feels like it needs to be one of those games again. Last key, and I think I say this for both of us, and probably every single Purdue fan that has watched any game this season, rebound the basketball on the defensive side, especially. Like, just be able to crash the glass, grab the ball, and not let Bama get second chance opportunities. I do have one bonus key, and not
Okay.
like this has to happen for Purdue to win, but just like I'm going to be on the lookout for this. With how Bama plays their defense, very conservative, deep drop. They let the bigs just kind of do their thing. If Jacobson and Clough can combine to hit like 2 to 3 threes and just kind of steal some points that way, where I would expect them to probably at most put up like 3 to 4 combined 3-point attempts. Who knows if Clough would even put up 1, but it is something that's there that, like, if they can just happen to hit those, can kind of swing the game, 6 to 9 points depending on how many go in.
Yeah. No, I like it, Joe. We should acknowledge, because we keep talking about it like TKR is going to play, and you just kind of acknowledged it for the first time. To be clear, we don't know. We have no idea. We have no inside knowledge. I've gotten about 10 texts in the last 2 days, and like, I don't know what type of access people think I have, but not that kind of access. And if it's still Ginger, I don't know that they know right now necessarily if he's 100% playing or not. We haven't heard one way or another. Going to be a really interesting game. I think from a few lines that I've heard, it sounds like Purdue's probably not going to be favored. Even they're the number 2 team in the country. Obviously, going on the road is going to provide a little bit of advantage for Alabama in this matchup. Predictions, though, Joe. I'll let you go first.
God. It's like if when I think through the game and I see what Bama has done and what Purdue has done, I'm like, Bama is maybe at this point in time maybe just the better team, and I don't think they'll be the better team come February, March, but they might just be the better one now. But then it's also like, do I really want to bet against Braden in a spot where he's going to be doubted? But I do have to pick. I'm gonna go Bama wins like 89-87. I think it's really close. Hopefully I'm wrong and some of the defensive stuff does show up a little bit more, but I'm really concerned about what the defense will be.
Yeah, I completely understand that. Man, I kind of had it in my mind what I was going to do, but I'm going to go with TKR and Clough, with TKR back playing alongside Clough, that these two find a way to dominate down low and Purdue pulls it out like 85-80 on the road.
Well, I hope that you are correct. And regardless, win or loss, we will be live right after the final buzzer. And with it being a road game, we will be live pretty much right after the final buzzer. And that is Purdue versus Bama. It is a Thursday, November 13th is when it is happening. It is a 7 p.m. Eastern time tip on ESPN2. So make sure to make sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification. You'll be notified as soon as we do go live. Kraig, you got anything else?
I do not, other than Purdue fans also support Purdue volleyball. Got my NIL shirt here. Dave Shondel's having an amazing season. Go out and support the volleyball team as well.
100%. So appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure to put your comments or put your predictions down in the comments. Yeah, should be a very fun, entertaining game. We will see you all after the game on Thursday.